being written on daily, they keep on talking of the 7 cities of Delhi. Now, I think this is more than a bit of an exaggeration. To my mind, there have been just 2 cities. One where we are sitting, the Mehrauli area, and the other is Shahjahanabad. These 2 had the time to grow into cities. The 5 that came in between and the 8th that was inaugurated in 1912 are not cities, were not cities. They were mere capitals. And what makes a city is essentially the first thing that turns a settlement into a city or starts the process of turning a settlement, a village or whatever into a city is the first migrant. It is migrants who turn villages into cities. And if you don't have migrants, you don't have cities. And because every time a migrant comes from somewhere else, she brings with herself or he brings with him new things. Maybe new instruments, maybe new kind of cooking vessels, maybe new spices, new grains. And then what existed before and what has been brought in by the migrants begins to mix. And this process of mixing creates a city. A city has to be by definition cosmopolitan. An area where people live is not cosmopolitan, is not a city. So the moment you start saying that if you can't speak Hindi, you don't belong here, then the people who raise these things don't have an urban awareness. And that is why I have, over the last 30, 40 years, come to realize that a city, that a place that I thought was the finest example of urbanism in India, I have begun to lose it for Bombay. The moment you start saying Amchi Mumbai, and you start telling people if you don't know Marathi, then you don't belong, then you are not behaving like somebody who lives in the city. And this struck me like a sledgehammer when I was in, a few years ago, I was passing through and I was in London for a week. And I was traveling in the tube. And suddenly I started looking around and each coach had fewer English-speaking people than there were people whose mother tongue was not English. There were people whose skin color did not match, whose facial features did not match the Anglo-Saxon. And that is why London is a city. It's a vibrant city. So is New York. Washington is not a city. New Delhi is not a city. A city has by definition to be a mixture of all kinds of professions, of all kinds of languages, musical traditions, different attires, mixing of food, mixing of styles of construction, all that together. And then over centuries, all this merges together to create a vocabulary of that city, which is in a state of constant flux. It is not static, it is constantly changing. But it retains some of those original elements which gave it the form of a city. And it keeps on getting transformed, changed. A city, to my mind, has to have the following constituents. It has to have a resident population. Migrants are coming in all the time, but they settle. They live, and they become the city. Somebody had asked Ghalib, who is a Delhi one, and Ghalib said, whoever celebrates his major festivals in the city is a Delhi. It's a very, very keen observation. If for Durga Puja you are going to Calcutta, you are not a city. If for Dasara you are going home. If for whatever major festival in your community you go to your village, then you don't belong to the city. Your roots are still there. And it is this mixing that gives shape to the city. And there are these resident populations with all their cultural diversity, retaining their ritual, their language, but they continue to live in their city, earn their livelihood in it. The second point that distinguishes a city from a village, for example, is the diversity. A village also has diversity, but it has a very ossified kind of diversity. You will have a locality of Brahmins, you will have a locality for Jats, you have a locality for the Sainis, for the Banyas, and out near the outer limits of the village is the Basti of the Dalits. They live in their own little cubby holes that have been decided for them for centuries. City does not have these kind of things. City probably will have, it will be organized along professions. So in old London, there is one street which has only tailors. Another street which has only dentists. Another street that has all the servants. Look at Shahjahanabad. There was one street of the bangle maker. There was another street of those who worked with needles, Suiwala. The first one was Churiwala. There was one street where those who worked on stone, Gali Sang Tarasham. There was an entire locality where those who made thatch roofs, Sirkiwala. There was a Gali Mochi Wali. There was a Gali Hakim Ji. That is how communities came and the streets got named after the profession that they follow and the locality. Going from this city to use, it has to have its own artisans, its own culture. And New Delhi is not a city because it doesn't produce it. Unless you count government reports as production. It doesn't produce it. Nobody lives in it. And I'm not saying this rhetorically. Nobody lives in it. You have MPs, some of them become ministers. If they lose the next election, they go back to their villages or where they had come from. They don't live. You have senior bureaucrats on transferable jobs. They are posted in Delhi after every 3 years, and 3 years later they are posted back to their parent town. So they are on transfer. There is Army, Navy and Air Force brass. They are posted and then they go back. They are brought to the headquarters and then they are sent back to their regimental headquarters. So they don't live. So who lives in Delhi? They are all people who are migratory birds. Who actually live in Delhi? Except for the drivers and cooks of the Sahib. And I know some of them who have been living in the same MP Bangalore for 40 years. When the new MP comes, they go and meet him and say, "Sir, आपके कपड़े हम धो देंगे और आपका घर साफ कर देंगे और हम आपके गैराज में." He gets free servant. This is what happens in every MP Bangalore, every municipality. The servants are permanent. The owners are not. A city has to have its own rhythm.